My parents always favored my golden child brother and disowned me for starting a business. Now my company is successful, my brother lost his job, and my parents want me to hire him. I, 29 male, was recently contacted by my parents, who have not been in touch with me for the past 5 years. They want me to help them out, or to be more precise, they want me to help my brother out. My brother Craig, 31 male, has always been the golden child, so to speak. My parents never even bothered to hide it because he happened to be better than me in every aspect, back then especially academically. This is something that my parents made sure I would never forget, constantly reminding me how much better he was doing at school, telling me I needed to buckle up if I wanted to be in the same league as my brother. He got into a great college, and then 5 years ago, he became the youngest vice president in the history of his company. He had been working there ever since he graduated and had been earning well enough for himself right from the beginning. But then, when he made history by becoming the youngest vice president at his company, his fancy corporate job became the standard to beat for me. My parents couldn't stop rubbing it in my face. Honestly, though, I had no interest in being a 9 to 5 employee. Sure, that life has its own perks, but I wanted to be an entrepreneur. That had been my goal ever since I even learned the meaning of that word. 5 years ago, after having worked at several places and gaining some knowledge in the industry I wanted to be in, I decided that I was finally going to start my own business, modern and edgy car accessories that I would design myself. I had spent enough time on research and development and had a proper business model to go ahead with, so I thought I would speak to my parents about it first. Regardless of how they always acted with my brother, I believed they would want the best for me as well because, well, they were my parents after all. So, I decided to tell them about it after they had thrown my brother a party to celebrate his new job. 2 days after that party, I approached them in person and told them about my plan. I expected them to have some sort of feedback, but instead, they just started laughing and said that I was trying to prank them. They said it was embarrassing that after educating myself for so many years, this was my big idea for my future business. I told them I was serious about it, but they told me that they would advise me not to quit my job because they would be embarrassed to introduce their son as a failure. They said they knew my business was doomed from the beginning because I wasn't capable enough. In comparison to my brother, they didn't want me to fail so badly, so they advised me to stick to the job I already had. I was really offended and decided to argue with them, telling them that I was going to go ahead with the business with or without their support. They said that I was free to do whatever I wanted, but I was not free from the consequences. They told me that if I went ahead with my business idea, they would be forced to cut me out of their lives because I would be an embarrassment to them. They already knew it. They also told me they were sick of having to introduce their sons, one being the vice president at a prestigious company, and the other still trying to figure his life out at the age of 25. They had been thinking about having this discussion with me for quite some time. Anyway, and finally told me that I could either continue working my way up at the job I already had and not be an embarrassment to them, or I could go ahead and do whatever I wanted and make a fool out of myself, but then I would lose them. It's pretty obvious what I did. I chose to cut them out of my life and never spoke to them again after that. I have also not been in touch since then because my brother obviously took our parents' side over mine, which I'm fine with. He was too arrogant anyway, so I didn't want anything to do with him right from the beginning. I had been working with cars for a really long time, and that's where I got my business idea from, so I had faith in it. I knew this was something people wanted, so I decided to go in blindly and just prove my parents wrong. I quit my job and started working towards my goal. Now, I know that was a risky move, and I shouldn't say it with such pride. I genuinely would not recommend it to anybody, but it actually worked out for me. Within a few months, I had some investors on board and was able to start my own business. It was rough at first. I was living hand to mouth and relied only on word of mouth marketing. But things started picking up pace after about a year and a half, and there was no looking back after that. Right now, I'm pretty comfortable. I have my own apartment, and it's nice. I live in a great neighborhood, I have a nice car, and I honestly have everything I had dreamed of in the beginning. I wouldn't say I'm a millionaire, but I'm doing well enough for myself, and I definitely would not say that I have been a failure like my parents had expected me to. So, I would say that I have managed to prove them wrong, and I'm really happy about it. I'm so happy about it that I don't even feel the need to have their face in it because it's not even worth it. For the past 5 years, I have not been in touch with them. I even got married to my girlfriend of 8 years, and we've been married for 2 years. Last month, we found out that she was pregnant as well. I've had so many milestones, but I've never tried to contact my parents. They know where to find me. They can literally contact any relative and ask them where I live so they can come visit me. Anyway, I know they have known all about my life because I've kept in touch with the rest of our family, and they tell me that my parents ask about me pretty often but never try to get in touch with me. I guess that's their way of dealing with things. But anyway, last week they finally reached out to me and asked me if I would be willing to meet them. I discussed it with my wife, and she told me that she wanted me to go ahead and see what this was about. They hadn't mentioned anything in the message they sent me, so I didn't know what to expect. But I still went ahead and visited them at their house. Once I was there, they welcomed me warmly, but I could sense that there was something going on. Even when I used to live with them, they had never been so nice to me, so I knew they were building up to something. Finally, they addressed the elephant in the room. They told me that they had heard how my business was doing and had invited me to congratulate me on it. They didn't apologize or anything, but said they were glad that I had been able to prove them wrong, and their initial skepticism was now completely gone. That was nice, and I didn't know what to say, so I just smiled. Then they went on to tell me that Craig had been pretty unlucky in the past couple of months. Apparently, his company had not been doing too well, and there had been mass layoffs. Even upper management had been fired, and that included him. So, for the past 4 months, he had just been sitting at home with nothing to do. My parents told me that he had been trying to look for another job, but had been pretty depressed about the way things turned out. I thought it was really confusing that they were talking about him, because there wasn't much I could do, so I just let them continue. I wanted to see where they were taking this conversation. After some time, they finally got to the point and asked me if I would be willing to hire my brother. Apparently, he was too depressed to apply for jobs on his own, and all the offers he was getting were below his pay grade. He needed something, and my parents wanted to contact me to ask if I would be willing to give him a position in my company. They said he could bring his own expertise to the table, and it would be a good fit. When they asked me that, I didn't know what to say, so I told them that I needed some time to think about it and would let them know my answer later. I didn't say yes on purpose because I wasn't sure how to respond. I should have known that they weren't contacting me without a reason, since they had the opportunity to do so before, but never did. They seemed pretty pleased with themselves. I think they expected me to say yes, but after going back home and discussing it with my wife, I decided to decline that. She works in a bank and doesn't have much to do with my company, but she told me that this was the professional arena. Whatever I decided goes. She didn't want to meddle, but she said if I believed I couldn't work well with my brother, then that's what should be done. Either way, she didn't think my parents were genuine in their attempt to reconcile with me, so I had no reason to do what they asked. Anyway, I had even agreed to help out, but I didn't owe them the responsibility of giving him a job. I didn't plan on letting them know about my decision right away, because I knew that if I said no, they would take the opportunity and try to make me look like a bad person. They thought I had gained all this success, so I could at least extend some of it to their golden child. But that was not going to happen. So after a few days of thinking it through, I decided to let my parents know my decision. I called them and said, I've thought about it, and I'm afraid I can't hire Craig. I could hear their shock through the phone, but I knew this was the right decision. I added, I built this company from the ground up, and I've worked hard to get where I am. I don't think it would be fair to bring him in, especially given our past. There was a pause on the other end, and I could feel the tension building. My parents tried to argue, reminding me how much I owed them for everything they had done for me, but I stood firm. I told them that this wasn't about holding grudges, but about fairness. I explained that Craig needed to take responsibility for his own future, just like I did. I told them that giving him a job wouldn't be helping him in the long run. It would just enable him to stay in his comfort zone while I had worked tirelessly to get where I was. They were disappointed, to say the least, and tried to guilt-trip me by mentioning how much they had sacrificed for me over the years. But I knew better than to fall for it. A few days passed without any contact from them, and I honestly thought they might have given up. But then, just when I thought things were starting to settle, my brother reached out to me directly. He sent me a message that said, I heard what happened with Mom and Dad. I know you're doing well with your business, but I really need your help. I'm not asking for a handout, just a chance. I'll prove myself, I promise. I sat there for a while, staring at the screen. I couldn't help but feel a bit of sympathy for him. But at the same time, I knew he had to take ownership of his life. He had always been the golden child, the one who never had to struggle the way I did. And now that things weren't going well for him, he expected me to bail him out. I thought about it for a long time, weighing my options. On one hand, I had the opportunity to help him, to prove that I wasn't the bitter sibling who would watch him fail. On the other hand, I knew it wasn't just about helping him. It was about the dynamic that had always existed between us. Was I willing to risk bringing him into my business just because he was family? Or was I going to stick to my guns and keep my company as something I had built on my own without the influence of my past? In the end, I didn't respond right away. I needed more time. It wasn't an easy decision, and I wasn't sure what the right thing to do was. But one thing was clear: I had to stay true to the principles that got me here. I couldn't just give up my hard-earned success because of old family dynamics. My brother needed to learn to stand on his own 2 feet, just like I did. The decision was made when my wife, who had been watching me struggle with this decision, said something that really stuck with me. She told me, helping him would be like enabling him. You've already helped him by being successful. Sometimes, the best way to help someone is to let them fail, so they can learn to succeed on their own. It was a hard truth, but it was one I needed to hear. I finally sent Craig a message back, telling him that I couldn't hire him, and that he needed to keep looking for opportunities elsewhere. I wished him the best of luck, but I knew that was all I could offer. The fallout was immediate. My parents were furious. They called me up, yelling about how I was abandoning my brother when he needed me the most. But I stayed calm and told them that I wasn't abandoning him. I was teaching him a valuable lesson about responsibility. They didn't see it that way, but I wasn't going to change my stance. They hung up on me, and that was the last time I heard from them. It's been a few weeks now, and while I still don't hear from my parents or my brother, I feel a sense of peace. I've made my choices, and I've learned that sometimes the hardest thing to do is the right thing. My business continues to grow, and while the relationship with my family may never be the same, I know that I've built something real, and that's something nobody can take away from me. In the end, I realized that success isn't just about making money or achieving personal goals. It's about staying true to your values, even when it's hard. It's about setting boundaries, protecting your peace, and knowing that sometimes the best way to help someone is to let them find their own path, even if that means walking away.